Welcome to War Bios, the podcast where we delve into the most pivotal battles in history, and I'm your host, General Biography. Today, we're going to explore one of the most legendary battles of all time, Thermopylae. This ancient clash between the Persian Empire and a coalition of Greek city-states has become synonymous with bravery, sacrifice, and the defense of freedom against overwhelming odds. In the scorching summer of 480 BCE, the Persian Empire, under the rule of King Xerxes I, was expanding its vast territories, having already conquered a significant portion of the known world. The Greeks, on the other hand, were a collection of independent city-states, each with their own distinct culture and traditions. To understand the events leading up to Thermopylae, we must first examine the complex web of alliances and rivalries between the Greek city-states. The two most powerful states, Athens and Sparta, had long been bitter rivals, but as the Persian threat loomed larger, they were forced to put aside their differences and work together. In 481 BCE, a congress of Greek city-states was held at Corinth, where they formed an alliance to resist the Persian invasion. At the heart of this alliance was King Leonidas of Sparta, a man renowned for his bravery, strategic mind, and unwavering dedication to his city-state. He was a descendant of the legendary hero Heracles and embodied the values of Spartan warrior culture. Leonidas knew that the key to defeating the Persians lay in choosing the right battlefield, where the Greeks could exploit their advantages in terrain and tactics. Meanwhile, the Persians were gathering their forces on the other side of the Aegean Sea. King Xerxes I was a ruthless and ambitious leader who had inherited the throne from his father, Darius the Great. He was determined to conquer Greece and add it to the Persian Empire, and he was willing to do whatever it took to achieve his goal. The Persians were a vast and diverse army, made up of soldiers from all corners of the empire, including infantry, cavalry, and naval forces. As the Persians began their march towards Greece, they encountered little resistance, as many of the Greek city-states were either too weak or too divided to put up a fight. However, when they reached the narrow pass of Thermopylae, they found themselves face to face with a formidable foe, the 300 Spartans, led by King Leonidas. The pass of Thermopylae was a natural bottleneck, flanked by steep cliffs and the sea. It was the perfect place for a small force to defend against a larger army, and Leonidas knew it. He had chosen this location carefully, knowing that it would give him the best chance of success against the Persians. The pass was so narrow that only a few men could fight abreast, which would neutralize the Persian advantage in numbers. As the Persians approached Thermopylae, they were met with a wall of Greek hoplites, their long spears and shields at the ready. The Greek forces, led by Leonidas, were made up of hoplites from various city-states, including Sparta, Athens, and Thespis. They were heavily armored and highly disciplined, with a strong sense of camaraderie and esprit de corps. The Spartans, in particular, were known for their rigorous training and unwavering dedication to their cause. They had spent years honing their skills in combat, and they were confident in their ability to hold off the Persian horde. As the Persians began to probe the Greek defenses, they were met with fierce resistance. The Greeks held their ground, fighting valiantly against overwhelming odds. The Persians, on the other hand, were a vast and diverse army, made up of soldiers from all corners of the empire. They were well-equipped and well-trained, but they lacked the cohesion and unity of the Greek forces. Despite being outnumbered, the Greeks were confident in their abilities and determined to defend their homeland. They knew that the Persians would stop at nothing to conquer Greece, and they were willing to sacrifice everything to prevent it. As the battle raged on, the Greeks fought with a ferocity and bravery that would become legendary, inspiring generations of warriors to come. As the battle commenced on August 18, 480 BCE, the Persian army, estimated to be between 100,000 to 200,000 men, attempted to break through the Greek lines like a relentless tidal wave crashing against an unyielding shoreline. The narrow pass of Thermopylae, with its towering cliffs and scorching hot springs, funneled the Persians into a killing zone, where the Greeks could exploit their advantage in armor and training. The hoplites formed a phalanx formation, presenting a wall of shields to the enemy, while their long spears protruded from the gaps between the shields, creating a deadly barrier that seemed almost impenetrable. The Persians, led by King Xerxes' brother-in-law, Hydarnes, launched wave after wave of attacks against the Greek lines, each assault a frenzied attempt to shatter the unyielding phalanx. However, each attack was repelled with heavy losses as the Greeks held firm behind their shields, their discipline and training allowing them to withstand the ferocious onslaught. The Spartans, in particular, fought with reckless abandon, taking advantage of the narrow pass to neutralize the Persian numerical superiority. They were a finely honed machine, each man working in tandem with his comrades to create an almost impenetrable barrier. As the day wore on, the bodies of the dead and wounded Persians piled up, creating a ghastly barrier that hindered the advance of their comrades. The air was thick with the stench of death and the screams of the wounded, yet the Greeks remained resolute, their determination to defend their homeland burning brighter with each passing moment. The sun beat down relentlessly, draining the strength from the combatants, but the Greeks stood firm, their shields locked together like a single, unyielding entity. On the second day of the battle, August 19, 480 BCE, the Persians attempted to outflank the Greeks by sending a contingent of troops around the pass to attack from behind. However, this plan was foiled when the Greek forces, led by the Phocian general, were alerted to the maneuver and dispatched a detachment to counter the Persian flanking movement. The Phocians held off the Persians, allowing the main Greek force to continue fighting unencumbered. As the battle raged on, King Leonidas became increasingly aware of the precarious situation. Despite their valiant efforts, the Greeks were vastly outnumbered, and it was only a matter of time before they were overwhelmed. According to the ancient historian Herodotus, Leonidas, when asked what message he wanted to send to the Spartans, replied, "Come and take them," in reference to the Persian demand that the Greeks surrender their arms. On the third day of the battle, August 20, 480 BCE, the Persians launched a final, desperate assault against the Greek lines. The fighting was fierce, with both sides suffering heavy losses. However, as the day wore on, the Greeks began to tire, and their lines started to waver. It was then that a local resident, named Ephialtes, revealed a hidden path around the pass to the Persians, allowing them to attack the Greeks from behind. This treacherous act would prove to be the decisive factor in the battle, as the Greeks were unable to withstand the onslaught from both front and rear. As the scorching Greek sun beat down on the narrow pass of Thermopylae, the air was electric with tension. The year was 480 BCE, and the Persian Empire, under the rule of King Xerxes, had been making its way through the ancient world, leaving a trail of conquest and devastation in its wake. The Greeks, led by the fearless King Leonidas of Sparta, had chosen this strategic location to make their stand against the invading forces. The pass of Thermopylae was a natural bottleneck, flanked by steep cliffs and the sea, which funneled the Persian army into a killing zone. The Greek phalanx formation, with its long spears and shields, was perfectly suited for this type of terrain, allowing them to present a wall of steel to the enemy. As the Persians attacked, the Greeks held firm, their discipline and training proving more than a match for the sheer numbers of the enemy. However, as the battle raged on, the Greeks began to tire. The Persian army was endless, it seemed, with wave after wave of soldiers crashing against the Greek lines like a relentless tide. It was then that the Persians discovered a hidden path around the Greek flank, which allowed them to attack from behind. This was the decisive moment that would seal the fate of the battle. As the Persians attacked from behind, the Greek lines were breached, and King Leonidas was killed in the fighting. The remainder of the Greek force, realizing their position was untenable, retreated to a small hill where they made a last stand. Surrounded by the enemy, they fought valiantly, but ultimately they were overwhelmed, and nearly all of them were slain. The Battle of Thermopylae was a crushing defeat for the Greeks, with estimates suggesting that between 1,000 to 2,000 Greek warriors perished, including King Leonidas. However, despite being vastly outnumbered, the Greeks had managed to hold off the Persians for 3 days, inflicting significant casualties on the enemy. This brave defense would prove to be a pivotal moment in the Persian Wars, as it galvanized the Greeks and inspired them to continue resisting the invaders. The aftermath at Thermopylae was marked by a sense of shock and grief among the Greek city-states. The Athenians, who had been instrumental in supporting the Spartan-led defense, were particularly affected. They had evacuated their city, leaving behind only a small garrison to defend the Acropolis. As the Persians marched unopposed towards Athens, they left a trail of destruction in their wake, burning and pillaging everything in sight. However, the Athenians had not given up hope. They had been preparing for this moment, and their navy was ready to strike back at the Persians. Under the leadership of the brilliant strategist Themistocles, the Athenians would go on to play a crucial role in the eventual defeat of the Persians. The following year, a combined Greek force, led by the Spartans and Athenians, defeated the Persians at the Battle of Plataea, marking a decisive turning point in the war. The Greeks had learned from their mistakes at Thermopylae and had adapted their tactics to counter the Persian army's strengths. They had also developed a newfound sense of unity and purpose, which would serve them well in the years to come. Thermopylae's legacy extends far beyond the battle itself. It has become an enduring symbol of courage, sacrifice, and patriotism, inspiring countless works of art, literature, and film. The famous phrase, "Come and take them," attributed to King Leonidas, has become a rallying cry for those who value freedom and are willing to fight for it. As the ancient Greek historian Herodotus so eloquently put it, the Spartans fought with a courage that was beyond human. This courage was not just about individual bravery, it was about a collective sense of purpose and duty. The Greeks had come together to defend their way of life, and they had done so with honor and distinction. Today, the site of the battle is a place of pilgrimage for history enthusiasts and patriots alike, with a monument dedicated to King Leonidas and his brave warriors. Visitors can walk through the narrow pass, imagining the sounds of clashing steel and the cries of the wounded. They can see the hill where the last stand was made and pay their respects to the men who gave their lives for their country. That's all for today's War Bios. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, I'm General Biography reminding you to keep marching toward victory.